Hi, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Mina, and this is the first real video that I am filming and posting. So I am excited. My first official video was my intro video, but let's ignore that cringiness and move on. So, as you can probably tell by the title of this video, this is going to be a book talk about a series I love. And that would be, ta-da! The Wrath and the Dawn duology by Renee Ahdieh. Before we get into this, just know that this is a non-spoilery book talk. The spoilery book talk will be up hopefully soon after this one. But for now, this is non-spoilery, so if you haven't read the book, please don't watch the spoilery one that will be posted sometime after this one. Okay, let's get into it. Firstly, let me tell you what this is about. So, actually, this series is a retelling of a popular Middle Eastern tale that apparently not many Americans know about, but it's okay. If you don't know, I'm Middle Eastern myself. I'm half Lebanese, half Iranian, so I know this tale as any kid from our country knows this tale. So, this book is actually a retelling of 1001 Nights. 1001 Nights is an old folk tale, a Middle Eastern folk tale that is about this princess, no, she's not a princess, sorry. She's the daughter of a vizier, a minister, and she basically volunteers to be the bride of a king who's known for murdering his wives every night. That's the premise of the original story. It's pretty morbid, I know, but she volunteers to be his wife, and basically it's called 1001 Nights because she survives 1001 nights by basically telling the king a story every night and stopping at the most suspenseful moment so that he'd want to continue the story the next day. And she survived like that for 1001 nights until the king was like, listen, I can't kill you now, like, I just can't. So that's how she survived in the original story, and in the original story, the king killed all his wives because his first wife cheated on him, and he couldn't deal with it, I guess, and wanted to punish all the women in the country for her mistake and error. I don't know, it's pretty crazy, but that's the premise of the original story. This one is of course different. It retakes the same premise. So Shahrazad, who it's also the same name of the main character here, is a girl who volunteers to be the wife of the Caliph of Khorasan. To explain the terminology a little bit, Caliph is basically what you would call the equivalent of the king in this country, well, in this region, really, Khorasan. Khorasan is actually a region today of Iran. It was bigger back when Iran was Persia, but yeah. So she volunteers to be the bride of this caliph, and because she wants to take revenge on him and kill him because he killed her best friend who was taken as one of his brides. Great premise, I know. Actually, it's quite hooking. It's kind of morbid, but it's quite hooking, and I was like, wow, I wonder how this is going to turn out as soon as I read that this was her motivation. And so it's interesting. So that's how the story originally starts off. Now, no one actually knows why the Caliph, Khalid, is killing his wives every night. So she's determined to, first of all, find out, second of all, kill him. That doesn't exactly go to plan. If you don't already know, this duology is classified as a fantasy romance, so you can probably guess that there's some romance involved between Shahrazad and Khalid. That's not a huge spoiler, it's literally in the genre. So, anyway. What's interesting about this story, though, is how how Renee Ahdieh, the author, takes this pretty cliche premise of we hate each other and takes it to the love stage. Because generally, this premise, this whole I hate you, I love you thing kind of always has the same steps in it, but she makes it interesting and very, very entertaining and hooking. Like, she changes it completely, she breaks cliches, and I can't tell you how, obviously, this is a non-spoilery video, but it's just so amazing. And let me give you an idea of how great it is. I rushed through this in less than a day. I don't know exactly how much time because I wasn't keeping track. And then as soon as I was able to buy the second book, The Rose and the Dagger, I read it in 4 hours. I'm not joking. And as soon as I finished this duology, I wanted to reread it again. So if that doesn't give you an idea of how good it is, I don't know what does. Let's talk about the characters. I'm gonna tell you as much as I can. So for Shazi, that's actually the character's nickname, Shazi. So Shazi is honestly one of the best female leads that I've ever had the pleasure of reading, because she is just so badass. She's so smart and witty, and honestly, some of the things she said floored me. Like, I was dying of laughter, and of course my family was just staring at me like, are you okay? And I tried to explain to them, but obviously as they're not reading the books, they can't relate, and it's so sad, and I just need to talk about it with somebody. That will be the spoilery video, but let's not do this right now. So she is super funny, sarcastic, witty, like proud, very strong female lead, very strong like person, but she's not like strong to an unbelievable degree where you're like, this woman fears nothing, clearly I can't relate to her. Like, she's scared, but what makes her special is that she pushes through it. She's like, who cares if I'm scared? This is what I have to do. And she's just very sassy. Like, very sassy, and it's hilarious to watch how much she annoys Khalid. But yeah, let's talk about our male lead. Now then, Khalid, I can't tell you too much about him since his whole character is the intrigue of at least the first book and discovering him, but the way you discover him is fascinating. Like, Renee writes it in such a way where it's like you're peeling off. This is gonna sound really weird as a metaphor, but it's as if you're peeling off, you know, like the layer of skin of an onion. And it's so interesting because you're slowly puzzling the pieces, first of all, of his backstory, second of all, of him as a person together as you're reading, and as Shazi is, because she's trying to figure him out, right? And it's great, it's amazing to like follow her journey, except that the reader kind of has an advantage because you get Khalid's point of view in a couple chapters, so like we know a couple of things. But I can't tell you more about Khalid because it's too spoilery. I'm sorry, his character in its entirety is spoilery. But if you want to know more about him, go look at the spoilery video that should be up soon after this one. Second of all, let's talk about the secondary characters. Now, the cast of secondary characters is pretty great. You love pretty much all of them, obviously except for the villains, but pretty much all of them. And you love to hate the villains, so that's great. But basically, you've got Jalal, who is if I'm not mistaken, I can't remember his exact title, but he's something like, I think he's the general of Khorasan. He is hilarious character, kind of the comedic relief. He's one of those characters that's like joking all the time, but you can tell that he's seriously smart. I mean, he wouldn't be general if he wasn't, right? So he's hilarious. The interactions between him and Khalid and then him and Shazi are priceless. Great character, and you instantly love him. The other important secondary character is Despina. Despina is actually Shazi's handmaiden, and she is another very strong female character. She is extremely funny, and you love how much she annoys Shazi. I know that sounds weird because Shazi's our main character and we should probably support her, but it's hilarious how much she annoys her. And so she's great. Those are the two main secondary characters. There are other characters that revolve around these people. I'm not gonna get into it too much because you have to read the book to appreciate them, obviously. Just wanted to give you a rough idea of the main cast. Then let's move on to something else I love about this book. Something else I can tell you is that the writing style is absolutely magnificent. Like, I cannot praise Renee's writing style enough. It's beautifully elegant. The words just flow in a way that you're just like, wow, you're in awe, honestly. And the way she uses metaphors and certain words together, I would have never thought of that. And her descriptions just so vivid and artistic that you're just there like, wow, and you feel as if you're actually there. Especially the way she describes the clothes, the food, the palace. I mean, it's so luxurious, well painted. You feel like you're there. You're in that room with the characters. You're wearing those beautiful clothes and eating that delicious food. It's amazing. And the descriptions of the characters, for example, when we're seeing Khalid through the eyes of Shazi or Shazi through the eyes of Khalid, it is stunning. I mean, because just the style of her words and how she expresses herself. I mean, I would read another book, even if let's just say this story was terrible, which is not, it's amazing. But I would read another book of hers just for the writing style alone. Okay, I got cut off twice, but let's re-say what I just said. Basically, one thing you need to keep in mind while reading this book, which may shock some American readers, and they're gonna be like, what the hell is this? Basically, if you're not Iranian, you're not gonna understand. Thankfully, there's a glossary at the back of the book because Renee uses a couple Farsi terms here and there. First of all, to talk about, the clothing, like sirwal is the type of pants they wear and stuff like that, but also for terms of endearment, and I'm not gonna tell you right now what they are because this just is too long. I'll talk about it maybe in the spoilery video so I can gush about how I love that she uses them, but right now we're not going to talk about that. But that's something to keep in mind, and if you're a little thrown off by that, don't worry. There's a glossary in the back to help you, and I think it honestly makes the story way more attached to the culture, and I really appreciate it as being Iranian myself. So that's one thing to keep in mind as you're reading. But another thing is that, listen, I absolutely love this duology. Like, I give this 5 out of 5 stars. However, there are two things that if someone asked me, is there anything you would do differently or that bothers you? There are two things that I would say. And only if really forced to, because I love this series, if you haven't already guessed. One thing is that I would love it if there was a little bit more interaction between the main characters and the cast of secondary characters. And this is, it might just be a personal thing, because I really like to get to know the secondary characters pretty well, not as well as we know our main characters, obviously, but I like to know them pretty well to give myself a sense, first of all, of who they are, because if they're in the story, they have to have some sort of significance. So I'd like to know who they are better, and then knowing them well leads to you appreciating the interactions between them and the main characters more, making them more significant. So I wish there had been a little bit more of that. It might just be a personal thing. I still love this series, obviously, but that's the only thing I would really say about, you know, the interactions between people. Also, I know the story is centered around Shazi and Khalid, so, like, I get it. But that's just my personal opinion. The second thing would have to be the fantasy magic element of this series. Obviously, it's classified as a fantasy romance, so there is some magic in it, and you know it from the get-go. Like, you know that their magic exists, at least, in this world. But the magic system is not at all fleshed out. You just kind of, like, it's there, and it helps in the plot. And that's fine for this series. Like, it works for this series because it's not an essential plot point. It's just a plot device. And as I said before, I mean, the story is not about the magic, and it's not about the secondary characters. It's about Shazi and Khalid mainly, and the book is very, very romance-driven. Like, the romance is an integral part of the plot. So the fantasy really, like, the magic element doesn't need to be fleshed out for the story to make sense, and it's written in a way, and you have to appreciate this, but it's written in a way where you don't care that the magic is not fleshed out, and you're just like, oh great, this is happening, that's cool, and you kind of move on, and you don't linger on that. So you have to appreciate when an author makes you do that, because a lot of times when you're reading a fantasy book and you're like, wait a second, I don't understand the magic going on here, it'll really bother you, but it's not a main thing in this series, and you're just like, oh cool, okay, there's magic, great. So I appreciate that, but that's the only thing I would have to say. Otherwise, all in all, little recap, this duology, 5 on 5 stars, excellent characters, excellent plot development, excellent writing. Absolutely fantastic writing. And it's all in all an amazing read. I highly, highly recommend it. And I will definitely, I know Renee has another series out, or is in the course of writing it. I'm not sure if it's complete or not yet. I will have to check. But I will definitely be reading that in the near future when I can. So, yes. Also, stay tuned for the spoilery video for this duology, because that will definitely be an epic fangirling session for me, and I hope that those of you who have read this series will gush along with me. But yeah, that's for another video. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you for the next video. Bye! Hey guys, I'm editing the video, and I realized that top of my head is cut off for most of the video. I don't know if most of my head is cut off in this part either, but I apologize for that. The camera I have right now is like, it doesn't let me see myself, so I'm kind of just winging it and getting my sister to like come before I film and check if my head isn't cut off. She keeps saying it's not. Clearly it was, I'm not sure. Hopefully I'll get a better camera at some point, but just to apologize for that. I hope it won't happen in future videos. I can't promise that. I will try my best. But yeah, thanks for watching!